Hello, everyone. Welcome. Let's get this burnout and webinar started. My name is Andrea Romer. I'm a certified life coach and an ICU nurse. Welcome. I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about burnout, how much I love talking about it and coaching on it. It's very exciting. Now, you're probably thinking, well, it's not exciting if you're in it. Well, I've been in it and probably will be at some point again. But the work is to realize it and then know how to move out of it and honor it because it happens because of our minds. And we can handle all of that, especially as nurses. So I would like to say I'm going to speak for a little while, but I really do welcome feedback, questions, and at the 20-minute mark or so, we can do some coaching if you have something that you feel like you want to get coached on. If you've never been coached, it's not difficult. Just type your question in the Q&A and or your thought and we can talk a little bit more about it. I could even probably bring you on to participate if you're interested. So, welcome. So, burnout. We would not even be having this conversation if we were not all affected at some point in our lives by burnout. And in knowing more about our burnout, we can enhance our performance and enhance our lives. I mean, can you imagine your life being even better? I know that I can. And as nurses, we think that burnout won't come in and out of our lives, but it will. And it will be from different parts of our thinking and in different parts of our lives. So I titled this Burnout and because sometimes we're burnt out very shortly because we identify what's going on and we step out of it. And then sometimes we are going to be burnt out and we can carry on. And that's what sees us through it. I want burnout to be accessible to people and not scary. I think that we often don't want to talk about burnout because we think it's an ending and not a beginning. I think it brings shame to nurses because they think they have to do something about burnout. And often it's not the actions. Okay, always, it's never the actions that fix our burnout. And really, I use the term fix lightly because it's nothing to fix, it's our thinking to change. Is there anything inherently wrong with us if we're burned out? No. Humans get burnt out because of our patterns of thinking. But to me, this has been a scary situation for what I've seen from nurses is that it feels scary and it seems scary. And I want to start to break down those walls a little bit. So let's get started. We can expect to have times where we are burned out. Yeah. We often deny that that is the case. Yeah. We think that something has gone terribly wrong that creates our burnout. We judge ourselves if we're burnt out and we try to escape it as quickly as possible and we don't talk about it. The thought that something has gone terribly wrong is what actually creates our burnout. We spin on what to do next and we do not focus. We forget our value. So let's just jump right in. Burnout is what happens as a result of our stressful thinking. Thinking. That's what our brain does every second of the day. Unless we tell ourselves, take 10 seconds and don't think. Even then, we're thinking. In our society, mostly we are taught that circumstances create our burnout. As you know, burnout is a buzzword and everybody's starting to do this work, but I can break this into very simple terms for you over the next 4 weeks. I'm going to tell you that circumstances do not create our burnout. It's not the case. Keep listening. If you're here, keep listening. It's amazing that we don't know this. Now, don't answer your texts. Take a few minutes, get a pencil and paper, unless you're driving, and write some things down. Burnout doesn't come from circumstances, which are facts. Burnout comes from our stressful thinking about them. So, for nurses, we think that COVID causes our burnout, working too much, difficult patients, our coworkers, night shift, day shift, too much staff, work life balance, and so many other things. Welcome to being human. This is no judgment. All of these things are real. They all happen to us and they can all be proven. That's why they're what I call a circumstance or an adversity. They all happen. Hear me. All of these things are real and that is no judgment. So, how do I know all of this? Because I have worked through burnout and found this work and have learned it. I mean, luckily, I found my work when I did because I was completely burnt out. Here's what was happening to me. I was thinking I could just act my way out of burnout. I was thinking every shift when I went home and showered in the dark that would shut off my burnout. So if you've heard me tell this story, don't move any soap in my shower because I would shower pitch black, no noise after every nursing shift. And that was probably after I'd been an ICU nurse for 5 years. I mean, I didn't think anything was wrong with that. I just thought that the burnout stopped at that point. Whereas what I know now is that the burnout just continued and it was from my stressful thinking. And what I was using to fuel my burnout was the thoughts that I was looking for value. I was searching for something. I was looking for value in my work. I was looking for validation. I was looking for work to give me satisfaction. And all of that searching was causing my burnout. But I thought, well, if I go home and shut off the lights from my shower, my burnout will go away until the next shift, of course. And then I heard my coach, and I remember that moment, and I will never forget thinking, overwhelm is optional, burnout is optional. And my life changed from that moment on. So I've been there. Our overwhelm, our confused thinking, our primal brain, and scarcity around all of this is what causes our burnout. It's a revolving door, like you heard. I would take the action and then I would repeat the same action because I was thinking all of the same things every shift. No judgment on me. And could anyone even tell? I mean, how burnout was showing up for me was that I was kind of on a hamster wheel in that revolving door. No one would have known by looking at me, but I was making life choices based on my burnout. So, not seeing our value is what happens when we're in our burnout. That's the one thing I really would like to say today, that we create our value with our thinking, just like we create our burnout, and the two do not meet. That's a great question. What does value have to do with burnout? Yeah. Well, if you think about what kind of actions we take when we're thinking we are valuable, we work and show up from a place of energy, focus, and determination. Whereas often from burnout, we take action from a place of overwhelm, confusion, and irritation. And those actions look different. When you're burned out, sometimes don't take a day off to take care of yourself because your brain tells you that more is more there. That's scarcity thinking coming through. So that's a great question, and we can explore more on that. I'd love to answer any questions that are coming up. So, when we're talking about the revolving door or the hamster wheel of burnout, not seeing our value, the constant stressful thought pattern that's happening when we're feeling burnt out raises our cortisol, Pardon me, I have an itch on my nose. It affects how our body responds to sleep and food, relationship, and rest. And just let me repeat that we are not burned out from working too much. We're burned out from not processing where we are and attempting to escape what is reality. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to all the nurses because we have been in some adversity. And obviously, we have had times where we have felt burnt out. And now the question is, have we continued to push on as burnt out people, or are we starting to understand how to get to a place where we can say that that may have been hard in the moment when I'm thinking it's hard and it shouldn't be happening? That makes me feel burned out and it makes me take action or inaction from that place. I know that it takes a moment to wrap your brain around the fact that when we think about COVID, we can think that was supposed to happen. This is okay. And a lot of times our brains offer us as nurses, this is a struggle. This shouldn't be happening. We get to be aware and decide how we're showing up and where our power comes from. So, how do we know we're burned out? By how we feel. Feelings. I know, don't hang up the phone. We're not going to talk directly about feelings this week. We're going to continue to talk about how when we're feeling valuable takes us to a different place than burnout and how our value goes to the wayside when we're in the revolving door of burnout. We think that if we do something different, we will not be burned out. Are you looking to get to the next place so quickly without feeling any of the feelings while being overwhelmed? That's burnout. That means we're in COVID or we're in overstaff, we're in something, we're having a thought about it, and maybe there's a feeling there that feels like fear, scarcity, sadness, despair. We're not looking at that. We're trying to rush out of it. That creates our burnout. So here's a few things that I call thought errors that lead us to a burnout feeling. I cannot believe how distressing this is. This should not be happening. Working more will create more. We are so busy, I'm drowning. This is part of the job. A different schedule will be better. A different job will be better. All very interesting, innocent thoughts that can go either way. But when we're burnt out, we're not able to look at those with the lens of abundance versus scarcity. How do we define value in ourselves? Let's just move on to value. We can be working as much or as little as we want and be energized. When we're working a lot of overtime, which happened to a lot of nurses in COVID, when we're working from a place of burnout, we are not energized. We're depleted. And there are nurses that were not depleted, that were energized in that time. And it was because of what they were thinking. When they were thinking, this is part of the job, it was working for them. Whereas some people think this is part of the job, I don't get a choice, that causes burnout. And maybe you don't get a choice. How do you want to think about it? We get to decide. When we think that we can act our way out of a situation that requires us to pause, the more value. So here's another scenario, which is something that I work on with clients. Result and value equals money, not effort. So that just means that we think that our effort equals money, but it's the result of value that creates our money. And when we don't have any value for ourselves in burnout, that's a difficult situation. The more value we create, the more we plan and use less energy. When we're afraid of working too much or being in hard situations, that causes burnout. When we know that it's never a problem to work too much or be in a difficult situation, that's when we avoid burnout. It's all about not having stressful thinking. Nurses work hard and do not get burned out is a mindset. And oftentimes we have to allow burnout and then say, I'm on the hamster wheel. This is where I need to take a moment, take a pause. Am I having stressful thoughts? Am I feeling stressed? Am I having scarcity thoughts? Am I feeling scarce? Like there's no time, there's no way out, there's no future. Are we planning? Are we just not planning? Days off, work days, time for us. Are we reacting? Are we letting our emotions just lead us from one fire to another? To start working on this today, you have to give yourself space to recognize this awareness. What I would suggest is writing down everything that comes out of your brain. Take a 5 to 10 minute period and write down everything that's going on with you, everything that comes out of your brain. That's what's going on, uncensored, and see what's there. If you're viewing this, you're probably feeling a level of burnout. So if you can then look at what you wrote, discover the facts there of what you wrote. Like maybe it's your job. You're thinking, I don't like my job. I need to move job. Is that creating value for you? And we know when we're trying to jump from one place to another, that the stressful thinking that we're using in one job will take us to another or will accompany us to another. That's a lot to wrap our minds around. That doesn't mean that you don't move job. That means that you find out what thinking is causing you to want to take the action of leaving your job. Now, you also may be thinking, I'm having some physical symptoms from burnout. I have fatigue, headache. Yes, those are all real, and you never want to ignore those. And those are things that you want to pay attention to and get help with. And if you're feeling deeper symptoms of or deeper mental symptoms of burnout, then of course you connect with a mental health professional that like is a therapist or a counselor or a crisis situation. What we're working on today is when we're functioning like I was, where no one could have seen or noticed that I was, showering in pitch black. I was still achieving, but it wasn't from a place that was productive. Kind of stalled me in that place, even though I was trying to rush out of it. I was trying to get to a different place in my career. I was trying to do different things from a place of burnout. When we are not valuing ourselves or our work or our patients, we're in this space. Value is a feeling that doesn't come. We don't think we're valuable unless we create that for ourselves. It's not going to come from the hospital or the patients or COVID changing or staffing. Of course, when we get our value from external sources, then our value drops as circumstances change in our work or life. Value drives our purpose. And so for me, I know that when COVID started, our value as nurses went way up But did our value as nurses go way up? I felt we were always valuable. It didn't change how valuable I felt. I am very value driven for myself. I want to do my best every day. And that can't happen if I'm coming from a place of burnout. Purpose from overwhelm may not be what you really intend. And so you just want to be paying attention to the feelings that come up and write down all the things that are coming up for you around burnout. When we keep going in this cycle, we do not do actions that help us. Just going to quick share my screen so that we can learn to talk about this model. This could be helpful. So when you're doing your thought download, that means you write down everything that's in your brain. So the circumstances are the facts. So could be your job, the amount of staff you have at your hospital, then that you have your thought. That's the sentence in your mind. That creates a feeling, then your actions and your results. So as you're doing your thought download, then you can put the facts in a circumstance line, the thought you have about it. It creates a feeling that comes up, action and result. And that takes some practice, but that model always stays in that order. And there's one circumstance and thought and feeling for each model. And the feeling is a vibration in our body. So I just wanted to introduce this to you. So if you want to write this down quickly, we're going to be talking about more about this in the coming weeks. So if you want to use this today, where right now you're feeling overwhelmed and you'd like to feel valuable, say in your job or on your next shift, next scheduled shift, I am valuable. That's an intention. You feel productive or determined. You get to decide. Energized. Action you create will be not paying attention to what's going on with you, not overworking, paying attention to what's going on in your life. And you create value outside of you. Like what we often want to do from myself. When we're burned out, we're often thinking that, we're doing so much more than we are because we're feeling overwhelmed and it just feels like so much. So the actions that you take from thinking that you're valuable and feeling energized, you'll create value for so many people, which is what we want to do from a place of burnout. We just aren't as effective. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And if you need more information about that, you can always find that on my website or message me. So the next thing I want you to do today is to ask yourself what you are feeling. And if you're answering yes, I am feeling burnt out, are you already thinking about work next time? Isn't that interesting? Because when we're burnt out, our normal option is to want to not be at work, but yet we're spending time thinking about work. And so if you could just gently say, oh, I see this. Maybe I'm a little burnt out and I would like to set this aside. I would like to have a fire for something else today, like my family or taking a bike ride or doing your chores at home or playing with your dog. There's a fire that can be lit there just by gently saying, "Oh, I see I'm thinking about work. What is that going to do for me right now?" That's from a place of burnout, and just set that aside. Just be curious. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and then I can open up to questions, is a little bit of scarcity thinking, just bringing that in because it's really hard to be valuable when that feeling or when you're thinking that you're valuable is scarce, right? And oftentimes that's because we're resisting failure. We think if we slow down, if we stop what we're doing, that we will end up failing. Like what's really keeping us going is the action from the place of burnout when we know it's our thinking. And we're not planning, we're just being in it and we're doing the same things over and over from the same feeling. We're just pushing too hard when we're thinking that we're burnt out. So, what we want to do again is identify from writing down what's in your brain what thoughts driving you today. Are you thinking that you're pushing too hard? When you're going to work, are you thinking I'm valuable? Or are you thinking I have to be there now so that I can not deal with what I'm feeling about everything? We have a lot of thoughts and we're busy with thoughts. When we say, "Oh, we're so busy," we're never too busy to get everything done. We're just not planning and we're busy with our thoughts. We're busy with our thoughts. This is a lot of new work. It's not always introduced to us. And I remember having my mind blown when I thought, "Oh, when I say I'm so busy," right, it's usually with all the thoughts I'm thinking and I'm not actually doing anything. The actions I'm taking are not from a place of value, determination, energized. So plan to take a break, plan to process your feelings, plan a day off. What does your brain say about all of that? Like, when would that be? How could that be? That's not allowed to me. When we're thinking the thoughts that that's not possible, then we're not going to make it possible. Again, write down what you've been doing this week. Were you showing up in value at work? Are you showing up from burnout at work? And are you judging yourself about that? Are you feeling shame about it? And are you reaching out to people? Once you can see your thoughts, then you can find the feeling. Just because this work is work, being a nurse is work. Most people go to work. This is not a reason to be burned out or stay burned out. If you are in it, no judging it, no problem. We all find our way into the revolving door at times. We say hello, we step out. All right, that's all I have for today. Remember that you can write down all your thoughts and see what's there. Burnout is caused by stressful thinking. It's not caused by the circumstance that's happening. I would love feedback, questions, and you can work more deeply with me on this. I work one-on-one with people. And next week, we're going to be discussing burnout and sufficiency. And we're going to be talking about how it's really hard to love our jobs when we're in burnout and how we get back to loving our job, even if we're in an adverse situation. And how that doesn't mean if we're thinking about leaving our job, that doesn't mean that we stay. It means we see what we're thinking that we don't like about it. And if it's putting us in a power place or a burned out place. So that's what we'll discuss next week. Anyone have any questions or anything that they want to be coached on, please feel free to put that in the Q&A now. I would love to answer questions. I love doing this work with nurses. It's so new and cutting edge, and it allows us to really get back our value in ourselves, allow ourselves to learn about burnout, to love our jobs wherever we are, learn how to process our emotions, all great things. Well, I don't see any questions. I want to thank all nurses and appreciate you being here. Hope to hear from you. Have the day you want, guys.